Alara had always been afraid of the dark. Not the ordinary dark of night, but the new dark, the one that had begun to creep across the world 20 years ago, swallowing color, sound, and eventually memory. It started in the far north. First the stars went out, one by one. Then the sun grew pale and reluctant. Crops withered. Rivers slowed. People began to forget things. The taste of strawberries, the names of their grandparents, the sound of laughter. The darkness was not merely absence of light, it was absence itself. In the village of Ember's End, perched on the last ridge before the shadowed plains, Alara lived alone in a crooked cottage at the edge of the forest. She was 19, slight, with storm-gray eyes and hands always stained with charcoal from sketching things she feared she would forget. The villagers called her the Quiet One, but behind her back they whispered worse names. Cursed, touched, light thief. They were not entirely wrong. When Alara was 7, her mother had vanished into the dark beyond the ridge while searching for firewood. Her father followed a year later, claiming he could hear her mother calling. Neither returned. After that, lights began to behave strangely around Alara. Candles burned brighter when she was happy. Lanterns dimmed when she cried. Once, in a fit of rage, she had made every flame in the village square flare so high they singed the thatch roofs. The villagers never forgave her for it, so she kept to herself, drawing birds she could no longer hear sing, faces she was starting to forget. One winter evening, the darkness reached Ember's End. It came as a wall of absolute black rolling slowly down from the northern mountains, erasing everything it touched. Trees became silhouettes, then nothing. The air grew thick and silent. The village elder rang the warning bell until his hands bled, but the sound fell dead against the advancing void. People fled south with whatever they could carry. Alara stayed. She had nowhere to go, and something in her refused to run. She stood on the ridge as the darkness lapped at the village like a slow tide. When it reached her cottage, she felt it tug at her memories, her mother's lullaby, the warmth of her father's hand. She clenched her fists and pushed back with the only thing she had left: anger. Light exploded from her palms. Not fire, not lantern glow, but pure woven light, threads of gold and silver spinning out of her emotions, braiding themselves into a radiant shield. The darkness recoiled, hissing like steam against ice. Alara stared at her glowing hands in terror and wonder. She had always affected light, but never created it. That night, she experimented. Joy produced soft dawn-like radiance. Sorrow birthed cold blue starlight. Love, rare and painful, wove warm amber that lingered longest. Rage burned white-hot and dangerous. Every strand she pulled from herself took something with it. A memory, small at first, a favorite song, the smell of bread baking, then larger ones. By morning, she could no longer remember her mother's face. She should have stopped. Instead, she walked north, into the dark. For weeks she traveled the shadowed plains, weaving light to guide her steps. She lit abandoned villages so survivors could find their way south. She wove glowing bridges across chasms the darkness had carved. Word spread. A girl walking ahead of the void, leaving trails of light like breadcrumbs. They began to call her the Lightweaver. Some followed her, hoping she would save them. Others feared her, whispering that she was stealing light from the world to feed her own power. Both were partly right. The deeper she went, the stronger the darkness grew. It spoke now, in a voice like grinding stone. You cannot win, little thief. Light is finite. Memory is finite. You will run out. Alara kept walking. At the heart of the darkness she found the source, an immense crater, blacker than anything she had ever seen. At its center stood a cracked obsidian pillar, and around it coiled a creature made of pure absence. No eyes, no mouth, only hunger. The darkness had once been a star, the creature told her without words. A star that burned too brightly, consumed itself, and in dying learned to feed on light instead of creating it. Now it traveled from world to world, drinking until nothing remained. Alara understood then why the darkness took memories. Light and memory were the same currency in the end. She could turn back. She had bought the world years, perhaps decades. Enough time for people to live, love, forget her. Instead, she stepped into the crater. The creature surged toward her. She met it with every memory she had left. She wove her father's laugh, bright and reckless. She wove her mother's lullaby, soft and endless. She wove the taste of strawberries, the sting of the village's scorn, the warmth of a stranger's gratitude when she lit their path. She wove the memory of standing on the ridge the night she first pushed back the dark. Each strand burned away a piece of her, but the light grew blinding. The creature shrieked, a sound like galaxies tearing. Alara reached for her final memory, the moment she had first seen her own hands glow, the terror and wonder braided together. She poured it into one last thread, brilliant and terrible. She wrapped it around the obsidian pillar and pulled. The pillar shattered. The creature unraveled, threads of darkness coming undone like burnt paper. Light, real light, flooded back into the world. The sun rose fierce and golden. Stars ignited overhead. Rivers sang again. But Alara remembered nothing. She wandered out of the crater and into a world suddenly bright and loud and new. People found her days later, sitting in a field of wildflowers, smiling at colors she could not name. They brought her to Ember's End, rebuilt and thriving. Children ran to her, calling her the Lightweaver, telling her stories of the girl who saved the world. She listened politely, nodding as if the tales belonged to someone else. At night she sat on the ridge where her cottage once stood, staring at the stars. They were beautiful, though she could not say why they made her cry. Sometimes, when no one was watching, she would lift her hand and try to weave light from emotion. Nothing happened. Her hand stayed ordinary. And yet, deep in her chest, something warm and wordless glowed. A final ember no darkness could touch. The world had its light back. And Alara, who had given everything to restore it, lived quietly in the brightness she could no longer remember creating. The stars burned brighter for her sacrifice, even if she would never know why.